1 year after his greatest victory, King Clovis stands before his army at the annual military review, his eyes scanning each warrior's face with cold precision. He stops, stares at one soldier. His gaze is ice cold, as if remembering something from long ago, something that has been burning inside him for 12 months. Your weapons are filthy. He speaks slowly, deliberately, then snatches the soldier's axe and hurls it to the ground with a metallic clang. The soldier bends down to pick up his axe. In that exact moment, Clovis raises his own axe and brings it down on the man's skull without hesitation. "Thus you did to the Vase at Soissons," Clovis says calmly, as if he had just swatted a fly, not killed a man in front of his entire army. The entire army stands frozen. No one dares to breathe. They understand now that this young king never forgets, never forgives, and never lets anything go. But what was this vase? Why would a king wait exactly 1 year just to kill one soldier? The answer lies in a battle that changed the course of European history. To understand this story, we need to go back in time, to a world that was falling apart, where the mighty Roman Empire had crumbled into ashes. The year is 476. Emperor Romulus Augustulus is deposed. The Western Roman Empire, after more than 1,000 years of glory, officially collapses. But collapse doesn't mean instant disappearance. Like a burning house, the flames may die, but the embers still glow. Somewhere there is still warmth remaining. In northern Gaul, what is now France, one territory still calls itself Roman. They call it the Kingdom of Soissons, the last island in a sea of barbarians. 10 years after Rome died, there were still Romans. They lived, worked, and ruled as if the empire had never fallen, as if time itself had stopped. The ruler of this land was named Syagrius, son of a Roman general. He never claimed to be king, only calling himself Dux, meaning military commander. But the Germanic peoples around him called him King of the Romans, a title that Syagrius neither claimed nor denied, walking a careful political line. This was the last Roman territory north of the Loire River. Surrounded by barbarian kingdoms, the Visigoths to the south, the Franks to the north. Soissons was like an island of civilization in a stormy sea. Roman infrastructure still functioned, Roman law still applied, and people still spoke Latin. But this central location and wealth made Soissons a tempting prize. Everyone wanted to swallow it whole, they just weren't strong enough to do it yet. Syagrius had ruled for over 20 years, since 464 when his father died. It seemed like he could hold on forever, but history waits for no one. To the north, in what is now Belgium, a young king was watching. His name was Clovis, a Frank, and he was only 15 years old when he took the throne. 15 years old. But just 5 years later, this young king would completely redraw the map of Europe and open a new era for the entire continent. His father, Childeric, had lived in peace with Syagrius. The two respected each other, neither making a move against the other, like polite neighbours. Childeric had even helped the Romans fight against the Visigoths. The Franks and Romans had been allies for generations, fighting side by side against common enemies. But Clovis didn't want to be a neighbour. He wanted more. He looked at the fertile lands of Soissons and saw the future of his people stretching out before him. The year is 486. Clovis is 20 years old. He is ready. And he sends a challenge to Syagrius, demanding that he choose the battlefield. Syagrius accepts. According to Gregory of Tours, he did not hesitate, did not show fear, confident in his well-trained Roman army that had never known defeat. This was the moment when two worlds collided, old Rome, proud but fading, and the rising Franks, barbarians who could not be stopped by anything. Gregory records that Syagrius did not delay and did not fear when he accepted the challenge. He believed he could win, trusted in the undefeated Roman tradition. The Roman army of Syagrius was still professionally trained, strictly disciplined. They had fought together for years and had never lost a single battle. Estimates suggest each side had several thousand soldiers. Ancient sources don't give specific numbers, but modern historians estimate 5,000 to 6,000 per side. The Romans had better equipment, better training, better discipline. On paper, they should have won. But war is never decided on paper alone. Clovis did not march alone. He brought allies, other Frankish kings who shared his blood. First was Ragnachar, king of Cambrai, Clovis's own kinsman. And there was another, Chararic, also a Frankish king. But Chararic had his own plan, and that plan did not include shedding blood for Clovis. Chararic watched the battle from a distance, refusing to participate. He waited to see who would win, so he could join the victor. Opportunism at its finest. Clovis noticed this. He said nothing at the time, but he remembered. He would always remember. And Chararic would eventually pay for his cowardice. The battle took place near the city of Soissons, probably around June of 486. The Franks advanced from the north, the Romans moved to meet them. Gregory writes very briefly about the battle itself. The army of Syagrius was crushed. No details, no drama, just one simple and cold sentence. We don't know the tactics used, we don't know how long it lasted. We only know the result, total and complete defeat for the last Romans in northern Gaul. Syagrius, the last Roman north of the Loire, stood watching his men fall one by one. The Roman dream was shattering before his very eyes. He turns around. He flees. Not because he was a coward, but because there was nothing left to fight for. His army was gone, his hope was lost. This is the saddest image of a civilization. Its last commander fleeing from the battlefield, leaving behind more than 1,000 years of Roman glory. Syagrius fled south to Toulouse, capital of the Visigoths. He sought refuge from King Alaric II, hoping to find safety among fellow enemies of the Franks. Alaric II, king of the Visigoths, received Syagrius. But his protection would not last long because Clovis had sent a very clear message. Clovis told Alaric simply, "Hand over Syagrius to me. If you do not, there will be war." A simple threat, direct and completely serious. Gregory writes with contempt in his voice, for the Goths are always fearful. A biased statement, but it shows just how terrifying the Franks had become. Alaric handed over Syagrius. The man who sought refuge was betrayed, chained and sent back to his enemy. This is what happens when you trust former enemies. Syagrius was brought back to Soissons in chains, returning to the place where he had once ruled, but now as a prisoner, a trophy to be displayed. Gregory records simply, "He was stabbed to death in secret, no trial, no public execution, not a shred of dignity for the last representative of Rome. The end of Syagrius was death in darkness, nameless, unrecorded. 1,000 years of Rome ended with the sound of a knife and silence. Rome, in northern Gaul, was truly dead. No emperor, no army, no representative remained. Only memories and ruins were left behind. But for Clovis, military victory was not enough. He needed something more important, absolute power. And that required changing tradition itself. After the battle, the Franks did what they always did. They plundered. They took everything of value from churches, homes, anywhere they went. Among the spoils was something special, a vase that Gregory describes as of marvelous size and beauty, more valuable than anything else taken. Bishop Remigius of Reims sent a messenger to Clovis. He pleaded, "If you cannot return anything else, please return this sacred vase to the church." Clovis agreed. He wanted to maintain good relations with the church, even though he was still a pagan. This was the political calculation of a 20-year-old. But there was a problem: Frankish tradition. War spoils had to be divided by lot. The king had no special privileges, he was equal to every other warrior. At the division of spoils at Soissons, Clovis stood before the crowd and asked, "Oh, most valiant warriors, grant me this vase beyond my share of the lot." Most nodded in agreement. "Everything before you is yours, Lord," they said. But one man disagreed, and he decided to show his disagreement in spectacular fashion. He raised his battle axe and smashed it into the vase. The sound of breaking metal rang out across the silent crowd, like thunder in a clear sky. "You shall receive nothing except what the lot truly gives you," the soldier said, his voice hard as iron. "This is tradition. This is Frankish law." The entire crowd held its breath. Everyone waited for Clovis to react. Kill him immediately? Forgive him? Or something else? No one knew what the young king would do. Clovis said nothing. He took the broken pieces of the vase and handed them to the bishop's messenger. His face was calm, as if nothing had happened. Gregory writes, "He hid the wound in his heart." A simple sentence, but haunting, showing the terrifying restraint of a man who knows how to wait. 1 year passes. Clovis consolidates his power, expands his territory, and no one mentions the vase anymore. Everyone thinks he has forgotten. The annual military review takes place at the Campus Martius, following Frankish tradition. Warriors gather so the king can inspect their weapons and equipment. Clovis walks past the rows of soldiers, his eyes scanning each face. Then he stops. He recognizes him, the soldier who smashed the vase 1 year ago. "Your weapons are not clean enough," Clovis says, his voice cold as ice. "Neither is your axe." He snatches the soldier's axe and throws it to the ground. The soldier bends down to pick up his axe. And that is the moment Clovis has been waiting for all year. He raises his own axe and brings it down on his head. "Thus you did to the vase at Soissons," Clovis says, his voice still calm. 1 year of waiting, one swing of an axe, and one clear message for all. Gregory records, all stood silent with great fear. From that day, no one dared to oppose Clovis again. He had established a new law: the king is supreme. The story of the Vase of Soissons is not just about cruelty. It is about power. About how a young king changed tradition to build absolute royal authority. The old Frankish tradition held that the king was merely first among equals. Clovis changed that. The king is the law. The king is supreme. No one may oppose him. This was a revolution in Germanic political thinking. Before Clovis, kings were war leaders chosen by their people. After Clovis, kings ruled by divine right. And what happened to those who refused to accept the new order? Chararic, who watched the Battle of Soissons from afar, was captured by Clovis. Clovis had Chararic and his sons' heads shaved and forced them to become priests. When they threatened to grow their hair back, he had them both executed. In Frankish tradition, long hair was the symbol of royalty. To cut a king's hair was to strip him of his power. Clovis used tradition to destroy tradition, and Alaric, the one who betrayed Syagrius. 21 years later, in 507, Clovis himself killed him at the Battle of Vouille. Cowardice saves no one. After Vouille, Clovis had conquered almost all of Gaul. From a small kingdom around Tournai, he had built the largest realm in Western Europe. About 10 years after Soissons, Clovis did something that would change history forever. He converted to Catholic Christianity, not the Arian heresy like other barbarian kings. The legend says his wife, Clotilde, a Catholic princess, had long urged him to convert. But Clovis only agreed after praying to her god during a desperate battle. Whether the legend is true or not, the political implications were enormous. Clovis was now the only Catholic king among the Germanic rulers of former Roman territory. The Franks, those whom Rome had called barbarians, became the defenders of Roman civilization. They preserved law, administration, and the church. The church supported Clovis because he was Catholic. The Roman population accepted him because he protected their religion. It was a brilliant political move. Clovis made Paris his capital, transforming a small Roman town into the center of a new kingdom. He built churches and monasteries throughout his realm. Clovis died in 511 in Paris, the city he chose as his capital. He lived 45 years, reigned for 30 years, and changed all of Europe. He was buried in the Church of the Holy Apostles, which he himself had built. Later it would be renamed the Abbey of St. Genevieve. His legacy was not just territory or power. It was an idea that from chaos can come order, from barbarism can come civilization, from war can come peace. But his greatest legacy is a name, Clovis. In Latin it became Clodovicus. Then it became Ludovicus. Then it became Louis. 18 kings of France bore the name Louis, from Louis I to Louis XVIII. All trace back to the name of this 20-year-old barbarian king, Louis XIV, the Sun King, who built Versailles and ruled for 72 years, bore a name that came from a Frankish warlord who smashed Roman power. From a small chieftain in Tournai, Clovis built the foundation for one of the most powerful nations in European history, and it all began at Soissons. The Merovingian dynasty he founded would last for over 200 years before giving way to the Carolingians and the great Charlemagne. Charlemagne, who was crowned Roman Emperor in 800, ruled a realm that Clovis had made possible. Without Soissons, there would be no Carolingian Empire. And without the Carolingian Empire, there would be no Holy Roman Empire. The political map of medieval Europe was drawn by a 20-year-old Frankish king. All of this, empire, dynasty, France itself, all began with one battle in 486, when a young king defeated the last remnant of Rome. The Battle of Soissons is often forgotten in history books. It was small, poorly documented, and overshadowed by more dramatic events like the fall of Rome in 476, but in many ways, Soissons was more important. 476 was the end of something old. 486 was the beginning of something new. Syagrius represented the past, a past that could not survive. Clovis represented the future, a future built on new foundations but preserving what was valuable from the old. And the story of the Vase of Soissons? It was taught in French schools for hundreds of years as a founding myth, as a lesson about power, patience, and justice. French children learned this story the way American children learn about George Washington and the cherry tree. It became part of the national identity. One broken vase, 1 year of waiting, one swing of an axe, and one immortal phrase, "Thus you did to the vase at Soissons." That is how France was born.